Okay, so let us then begin. And so we'll start with 3 bows to the Buddha, the Dharma, Sangha. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And then we do the salutation to the Buddha. And so you could mentally visualize the Buddha as standing or sitting before you. And we recite with devotion, faith and devotion. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, so good morning, everybody. And today is September 18th, 2021. And we're continuing now with our reading of the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses. We're still in the Book of Fours, the groups of fourfold items. And now we come to Sutta number 173. It's a somewhat difficult sutta, and I considered even sort of skipping it over. But then I saw that sutta number 174 is actually constructed in the same way, just with the change of speakers. So it seems that the compilers of the Nikayas gave some special importance to the sutta, which deals with a rather difficult topic. But still, I thought we should take a look at it. So in the sutta, the Buddha does not participate in the sutta, but this sutta takes the form of a discussion between 2 eminent monks, 2 of the foremost disciples of the Buddha. One, of course, is the Venerable Sariputta, the one who is the one who excelled in panya, in wisdom. And the other is named Maha Kotthita. And Maha Kotthita was appointed by the Buddha as the foremost disciple in a particular type of analytical knowledge called, I think this was called the Patisambhida Jnanas. And interestingly, according to, I believe it's the Daja de Lun, which is the treatise on the Prajnaparamita Sutra, Maha Kotthita is there said to be the uncle of Sariputta. He's supposed to be the brother of Sariputta's mother, though I haven't found a basis for that in the Pali commentaries. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. But anyway, Maha Kotthita, we often see him in the suttas engaged in dialogues with Sariputta. Occasionally he gives discourses on his own, but I think most often he appears in discussions with Sariputta. Okay, so Maha Kotthita is a great Arahant disciple. So when he asks questions, he doesn't ask them because he doesn't know the answer himself, but he asks them as a way of setting the stage for Sariputta to give an explanation of some difficult points for the benefit of their students. Yeah, Maha Kotthita is the foremost disciple in what are called the Patisambhidas. The patisampitas are a special type of analytical knowledge. Okay, so Maha Kotthita comes to see Sariputta and asks him, with the remainderless fading away of the 6 bases for contact, is there anything else? Is there anything remaining? And let us look at the Pali here. Okay, so we have these 6 bases of contact. They're called pasayatana. And what are these 6 bases of contact? They're the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and then the mind faculty. So this is the way, according to the Buddha's teaching, it's through these 6 sense bases that we know the world, that we experience the world. So the world, in fact, there's a sutta in which the Buddha says that it is these 6 sense bases that are called the world in the discipline of the Noble One, because it is through these 6 sense bases that the world becomes present to us. And there's another sutta that occurs in the Anguttara Nikaya, in the Samyutta Nikaya, which is called the All, and I've pasted it in here. It's a very short sutta where the Buddha says, I will teach you the All. And the Pali word is sabbang, or in Sanskrit, sarvang. And so then he says, what is the All? The eye and visible forms, the ear and sounds, the nose and odors, the tongue and taste, the body and tangible objects, the mind and mental phenomena. This is called the All. So this doesn't address the question whether there exists anything outside of or beyond the 6 sense objects. Though it would seem to me that there must be some kind of material basis for the appearance of things as visible forms, sounds, odors, tastes, touch sensations, and of course, mental objects. But the Buddha's teaching is not concerned with this question about what lies outside the domain of possible experience, but rather it focuses upon the objects of experience and those faculties that make experience possible. And so in this connection also, there's another sutta of interest that occurs in the Anguttara Nikaya, also earlier actually in the Book of Fours. We would have taken it earlier. This is the Rohitassa Sutta. Yeah, it's Book of Fours, Sutta number 45. Okay, in the sutta, a certain deity named Rohitassa comes to the Buddha and he says, where one is not born, does not grow old, does not die, does not pass away, does not take rebirth, is it possible by traveling to go there? Let me just get that here, the translation. It's number 45. So he says, is it possible by traveling to know, see, or reach the end of the world where one is not born, does not grow old, does not die, does not pass away, and does not take rebirth? And the Buddha says, by traveling, it's not possible to know, see, or reach that end of the world. And when the Buddha says this, then Rohitassa says, this is amazing, astounding, how that was well said by the Blessed One, because he says, in the past, he was a seer, that's a kind of rishi, with psychic powers, able to travel almost at the speed of light through the sky. And then he made the determination to travel to the end of the world. And he traveled for 100 years without stopping except to eat, drink, to rest, and so on. And yet he passed away without having reached the end of the world. So even if we take a beam of light and shine that beam of light the way scientists are doing with signals sending light out into space, the light travels about 186,000 miles per second. And so in that way, we could determine how many light years away different galaxies are. And we reach billions and billions of light years, galaxies, billions and billions of light years away. And yet still, we haven't reached the end of the world. But then the Buddha says that by traveling, one cannot know, see, or reach the end of the world, where one is not born, does not grow old, does not die, and so on. But he says, without having reached the end of the world, there is no making an end of dukkha. And then he says, it is in this fathom-long body, endowed with perception and mind, that I proclaim the world, the origin of the world, the cessation of the world, and the way leading to the cessation of the world. And when he says this fathom-long body, endowed with perception, probably here, what makes perception possible are the 5 physical sense faculties. And then mind would be the mind faculty. So those are the 6 sense faculties situated in this body, which make possible, we could say, the presentation of the world within experience. And so whatever we know, whatever we can determine, will be either something directly perceived by or through these sense bases, through the sense faculties, or something inferred on the basis of sensory experience through mental construction, inference, speculation, and so on. And so now Maha Kotthita is asking Sariputta, with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 sense bases, the 6 bases for contact, is there anything else? And it seems that what he is asking about is, what is the status of the Arahant who has attained the Nibbana element without a residue remaining. So for the arhat, the one who is fully liberated in this life, as long as as the body continues to function, as long as life lasts, the six sense bases will be operative and a world will be presented to the arhat. And so this is the element of nibbana with a residue remaining. The residue are the five aggregates that have been picked up or acquired at conception and at birth, and that will continue to operate till the passing away of the arhat. And as long as the five aggregates continue to function, the six sense bases will be operative, and through the six sense bases, the arhat will be experiencing a world. But now the question comes up, with the passing away of the arhat, the six sense bases come to an end. There's the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six sense bases. So is there anything else beyond this? Sariputta answers, Mahevang avuso. Do not say so, friend. Yeah, Mahevang avuso. Do not speak thus, friend. Okay, so then Maha Kotthita drives at the same point, taking the negation with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six bases for contact. Is there nothing else? So this is setting up the duality of existence and non-existence as categories for classifying the arhat with his passing away. With the first question, does the arhat or the Tathagata continue to exist after death? And with the second question, in effect, he's asking, does the arhat come to a state of non-existence with his passing away? And Sariputta says again, Mahevang avuso, do not say so, friend. Okay, so next, Maha Kotthita asks a question phrased with the conjunction of the positive and the negative. So with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six bases for contact, is there both something else and nothing else? So this is positing the view that tries to combine both existence and non-existence. And again, Sariputta rejects the question by saying, do not say so, friend. Do not say that with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six sense bases, there both exists something else beyond that, or there is nothing else beyond that. And then the fourth alternative is the double negation, the negation of the positive and the negation of the negative. So with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six bases for contact, is there neither something else nor nothing else? So is it the case that the arhat neither exists after death or does not exist after death? And again, Sariputta rejects the terms of the question. Do not say so, friend. Okay, when Sariputta now, they've gone through the four possible alternatives recognized in the ancient Indian system of logic. So now Maha Kotthita goes through the four alternatives, and he says, in each case, you are saying, do not say so, friend. In what way should the meaning of the statement be understood? Okay, and now Sariputta explains why he rejects these four alternatives. So he says, if one says, with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six bases for contact, there is something else, one proliferates that which is not to be proliferated. And then he repeats the same thing with regard to the other alternatives. In each case, one proliferates that which is not to be proliferated. And these answers, I want to bring up the Pali here. Because the Pali introduces an extremely important term in early Buddhism. In fact, maybe even in the whole history of Buddhism. So the expression that's been translated, one proliferates that which is not to be proliferated. In Pali, it's apapanchang, papancheti. And both words turn on a word in the noun form is papancha. The exact origins or derivation of this word is uncertain, but we could try to determine the meaning by looking at a number of other passages that give us some indication of the usage of this word. And maybe the most helpful is a passage in the Anguttara Nikaya. This is in chapter 35, sutta number 248. And here the Buddha speaks, he uses a different form of the word. Basically, it's the same word in a different grammatical form, papanchita. So he says, I am is a proliferation. I am this is a proliferation. I shall be is a proliferation. I shall be, actually I shall not be is a proliferation. I shall consist of form is a proliferation. I shall be formless. I shall be percipient, shall be non-percipient, neither percipient nor non-percipient. And he continues, proliferation is a disease, proliferation is a tumor, proliferation is a dart. Therefore, you should train yourselves. We will dwell with a mind devoid of proliferation. So proliferation here in this passage, we could see is, maybe we could call it the construction of experience, the, the, the interpretation of experience, the elaboration of experience in ways that revolve around the concept, the notion of I am, the fundamental idea of I am, us, me. And at the root of us, me is the pronoun ahang, ahang, asmi, I am. So this is a sort of fundamental, I would call it a distortion that enters into our experience through the operation of beginningless avijja, ignorance. So when we experience anything through the six senses, that experience gets sort of distorted, elaborated, blown up, and misinterpreted as the experience of an inner subject, something taken to be an existing I, a truly existent subject of experience. And then once we give rise to this notion or grasp onto this notion of a truly existing I, then we have to give some kind of identity to that notion of I. And so we build up the notion, I am this. So we try to identify the I with something. In some cases, it could be identifying with the body. I am the body, or I am my feelings. I am my ideas. I am my undertakings, my projects, my volitions, my activities. Or at the more philosophical level, I am consciousness, the mind, the pure mind, the innermost self or subject of experience. And then once we give some identity to the notion of I am, then we start trying to determine the destination of that I shall be after death. I will not be after death. I'll be annihilated at death. After death, I will consist of material form or formless, and so on and so on. So these are all more elaborate constructions that build upon the original root notion of I am, the most fundamental conceiving or proliferation. So these terms are used pretty much synonymously. We have the word manyita, which is something which is conceived, but conceived wrongly. So we could say misconceived. And it's identical with papanca. And it's also identified here with conceit. Conceit, not in the sense of being proud and arrogant, but the most fundamental conceit is like a deluded notion, a fundamental misconception. And how this conceiving or proliferation enters into experience, for this, the most helpful sutta for illustrating this point is in the Majjhima Nikaya. It's sutta number 18. It's called the Honey Bowl Discourse, Madhu Pindika Sutta. So in this sutta, the Buddha makes a statement. So he says, as to the source through which perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a person, if nothing is found there to delight in, to welcome, to hold on to, this is the end of the underlying tendencies and all other unwholesome states. So the Buddha made the statement to the group of monks, and then he got up and went into his cottage without explaining the meaning. So after the Buddha made that statement, all of the monks were puzzled and bewildered. We didn't understand that statement. It was just incomprehensible to us. Who can explain the meaning? And so as a group, they decided that they would go to a monk named Maha Kotthita. Yeah, Maha Kotthita was another one of the foremost disciples of the Buddha, who is said to excel in the ability to elaborate upon and to explain short, enigmatic statements of the Buddha. And so the monks go to Maha Kotthita and they report the statement of the Buddha, and they say, please elaborate upon that statement for us. Please elucidate that statement. And then Maha Kotthita begins, and he says, depending on the I and visible forms, I consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling. And what one feels, that one perceives. So all of this is quite an explanation of the basic genesis of experience, how through the encounter of consciousness with its objects, through the sense base, there arises feeling, and then there arises perception. Okay, then the next stage, one starts to expand upon what one perceives. So what one perceives, that one thinks about. So this introduces the function of vitaka. The verb is vitaketi, which indicates the operation of vitaka, discursive thinking, which is not necessarily bad in itself, because there can be right thinking, accurate thinking, thinking in correct ways about the objects of perception. But then the trouble comes in the next stage. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. And here we come to the verb papancheti, from which the noun papancha is derived. So now as one is thinking about the object, now one is starting to elaborate upon it, to proliferate it. And this is where such ideas as I and I am start to slip into the experience. Now the experience, which has reached the stage of thinking, it's up to this point, it's just been continuing in a direct sequence, but now it starts to revolve in a kind of vortex. It's found a center, and that center is the notion of I am. And so then the text continues with what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions, I put in brackets, born of mental proliferation, beset a person with respect to past, future, and present forms cognizable through the eye. And then the same thing is said with regard to the other 5 sense modalities: the ear and sounds, nose and odors, tongue and flavors, body and tactile objects, the mind and purely mental objects. But we have here a development from thinking to this mental proliferation, and then from the mental proliferation, there arise what are called the perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation. Probably these perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation would be the ideas that are indicated in this sutta. I am this, I shall be, I shall not be, and so on and so forth. And according to the commentaries, the way the commentary explains that papancha are ideas that originate from the 3 roots. There are 3 roots of papancha. These 3 roots are craving, conceit, and wrong views. So craving would give rise to the idea of mine. This is mine, or I want this. I have to get that. So those kind of thoughts would be papanchas stemming from craving. Conceit, the most fundamental conceit, would be the notion I am. And then as I am gets expanded, it turns into the distinctions I am better, I am number 1, I am the best, or I am equal, I'm just as good as them, or the inferiority conceit. I am so bad, so incompetent, so inadequate, so hopeless, so inferior, the inferiority conceit. And then come the wrong views, like the views I will be after death, I will not be, I will consist of form, I'll be formless, and so on. So all of these are the elaborations of craving, conceit, and wrong views, which come from the most fundamental papancha, the notion I am. And so what the Buddha teaches is to uproot, to eradicate, to remove the root of papancha. But the human mind is always proposed to papancha, which takes on, it starts to expand, to elaborate, to proliferate more and more, so that we get so many detailed ways of interpreting things. And when we trace them back to their root, we come to this notion, I am. And there's another interesting sutta which sheds some light on the importance of eliminating papancha. Let's put this all together. Yeah, this is in the Anguttara Nikaya, the book of 8, sutta number 30. It's the sutta on the 8 thoughts of a great person. So in the sutta, the Venerable Anuruddha, one of the foremost Arhat disciples of the Buddha, is dwelling in a secluded place. And when he's thinking and reflecting, and then these thoughts occur to his mind, 7 thoughts occur. Apicha sayang dhammo nayang dhammo mahichasa, that this dhamma is for one with few desires, not for one with strong desires. This Dhamma is for one who is contented, not for one who is discontent. This Dhamma is for one who delights in seclusion, not for one who delights in company. This Dhamma is for one who is, so I have 3. This Dhamma is one who is energetic, not for one who is lazy. This Dhamma is one who is mindful, not for one who is unmindful. This Dhamma is one for one who is with samadhi, not for one who lacks samadhi. And this Dhamma is for one who has wisdom, panya, not for one who is without wisdom. So those were the 7 thoughts of a great person that occurred to the Venerable Anuruddha. But the Buddha was able to read Anuruddha's mind and realize that he was missing one thought, the last thought of a great person. So the Buddha came to Anuruddha and sat down in a seat. And then he said to Anuruddha, it is good that you have reflected on these 7 thoughts of a great person, but you're missing one. You miss the 8th thought of a great person. And this is the 8th thought of the great person. This Dhamma is for one who delights in non-proliferation, who takes delight in non-proliferation, not for one who delights in proliferation, who takes delight in proliferation. Ni papanchara masayang dhammo. Yeah, the Dhamma is for one who delights in non-proliferation. The key word here is ni I thought I missed something. Ni papancha. Whoops. Ni papancha. And ni papancha comes from the prefix near, which signifies exclusion or negation, and the R gets assimilated to the P, plus papancha. So the Dhamma is for one who delights in the absence of proliferation, not for one who delights in proliferation, who delights in these mental interpretations, elaborations, and constructions. And then there's a verse also in the Anguttara Nikaya from book 6, sutta number 14. The person who is devoted to this mental proliferation, who delights in proliferation, fails to attain nibbana, the supreme security from bondage. But the one who abandons proliferation, who finds delight in non-proliferation, that one attains nibbana, the unsurpassed security from bondage. Okay, so now from this little excursion in which I was engaging in a bit of proliferation by exploring some other texts that deal with the topic of proliferation, now we can return first to that key expression that we came across in this sutta, that all of these views about what the view that there is something else with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six sense bases, there is nothing else, both is and is not, neither is nor is not, all come about from proliferating that which should not be proliferated, that which is, we could say, beyond the range of proliferation. And another thing that just occurred to me just as I was speaking, where is this? In Anguttara Nikaya, yes, in Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 43, where we have a list of something like 40 synonyms for nibbana. And one of those is ni papancha. So ni papancha, that which is beyond the range of papancha, that is, it's one of the synonyms for nibbana, along with the unconditioned is one, the apalokitang, that which is not subject to decay, anidasana, that which is invisible. So in the sutta, there are something like 40 synonyms for nibbana: the stable, the everlasting, the undecaying, the subtle, the difficult to see, the excellent, the sublime, the goal, the destination. And one of them is ni papancha, that which is outside the domain of conceptual mental elaboration. And so here, Sariputta continues and he says, as far as the range of the six bases for contact extends, just so far extends the range of proliferation. So the things that we proliferate will be, and we build up all of our conceptual constructs, our mental elaborations, our speculative systems, our schemes of interpretation, all are based and grounded upon the 6 bases for contact, the 6 sense faculties and their objects. And we could say the states of consciousness that arise based on the sense objects and sense faculties. So that is the range of mental elaboration, mental proliferation. And so as far as the range of proliferation extends, just so far extends the range of the 6 bases for contact. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 bases for contact, there is the cessation of proliferation, the subsiding of proliferation. Yeah, so it seems to me that the way I would understand this, that the person who is trying to posit that there is something beyond, with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 bases for contact, is trying to interpret the state of the Arhat or Tathagata after death by way of the categories of existence, non-existence, combination of both, or the negation of both. But all of those concepts and categories apply only within the range of experience given through the 6 sense bases. And when the 6 sense bases utterly cease, with the passing away of the Arhat or liberated one, then there is no more room or base for mental elaboration. Okay, so maybe this will do for my explanation of the sutta, which I actually intended just to treat rather concisely. I didn't intend to elaborate on it, proliferate on it too much. But let's see if we have any questions, and we'll see if I can answer, though it's a difficult sutta for me as well. Okay, Tian Xiong.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning.
It's always mentioned for Arahant, this the defilement will not have like the soil to grow. And also for Arahant, they have overcome delusion. Does it mean for Arahant, this mental and rupa phenomenon will not arise in them, or they will arise in them? However, because they have overcome delusion, they will be able to suppress or seize the nama and rupa phenomenon. What is the sutta commentary?
You're speaking about the Arhat while the Arhat is alive?
Yes.
Oh, while the Arhat is alive, the Arhat will still continue to have Namarupa, the complex of mental and material phenomena. That will continue to function up to the time of the Arhat's passing away. Does that answer the question?
What I mean is, will the defilement grow in their mind, or is it will grow, it will arise, but because of their power of their you can say mental noting or awareness or sakti, then they can kind of overcome the defilements.
I see. No, there's no possibility anymore for the defilements to arise in the mind of the Arahant. The Arhat, it said that he's cut them off at the root. What is the expression? Keen, yeah, cut them off at the roots that they're no longer capable of arising. Yeah, so that they're utterly eliminated. Talavatu
Okay.
kata. It's made like a palm tree that's been cut off at the root.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Ali H.
Good morning, Monty. Thanks for your teachings. Could you repeat again, please, that how does this thought come into a person and then rises up to the center, and then from there I understood you were saying that then it vortexes because we give it a center as I. But could you repeat again before that what happens? What are the processes?
Okay, I think we could sort of see the way things work if we go back to that passage from the Madhupindika Sutta. Okay, so this is, if we look at the sequence here, we have like, this is the normal sequence of experience that,
Right.
okay, we have sense object and sense faculty. Based on those two, we have the consciousness arises. When they come together, the mind meets the object through the sense faculty, that is contact. Then from contact, there's feeling and
Right.
perception, and there can be thinking about the object. So these are all just the normal course of experience, which will occur whether one is enlightened or an ordinary person. For the Buddha too, all of this will occur in the same way. But then the trouble occurs in the next step, where one starts to expand and elaborate upon the experience. And this is where, the way I understand it, where the notion of I sort of inserts itself into the experience. So now it seems that, okay, feeling is occurring, perception is occurring, thinking is occurring. So now it starts to seem that the feeling is occurring to me, that I'm experiencing a feeling. Now it seems that I am perceiving the object, that I am thinking about the object. So that idea just sort of
I.
slips in just through the working, just because of the working of ignorance, of avijja within the mind.
Yes.
So a kind of split takes place in the experience where, from an experience of being conscious of an object, so we have the consciousness and the object. So now the consciousness starts to become identified as an I, a self who is conscious of the object.
Yes,
Is
that's
that
my
a,
question. Yeah. How does that consciousness and that split occur, in the mind? I mean, I don't know if there are any explanations for that, or we just think that that is where it vortexes into the center I.
yeah, it just happens because of the beginningless ignorance.
Okay.
So it's sort of that is sort of the fundamental root of samsara, you might say, the notion
Okay.
I am.
Okay. And then, yeah, how is
Yeah,
how
I
is it?
think we'll have to
Yeah.
give some,
Thank you.
we have to
Thank
give
you, sir.
others opportunity to, but okay,
Thank you, sir.
okay, and Fong,
You Bante.
yeah.
But Bante, for a meditator who have passion for writing, they have to do they have to give up Papanca too? And is it a good idea to just like burn up all that passion and finish and fulfill the
No, I
role?
think if you have a passion for writing, then you should continue to write, because that I would find that writing helps one to clarify one's thinking, particularly if you're writing on the Dhamma, because then you have to formulate your ideas clearly to yourself before you can communicate them to others.
you so much, Bante.
Okay, so now we'll go to V.
Yep. Good morning, Bante.
Good morning.
Yes. What you have just said of the so many suttas, would that be able to condense into the Heart Sutra? Do you think that the Heart Sutra basically covered all that what you have just said? Because it covered Papanca, it covered all the 6 senses and everything you negate.
The Heart Sutra, the Prajnaparamita Sutra.
Yes.
Yeah, well, what the Heart Sutra is trying to do, because it's taking the notion of shunyata, of emptiness, which is you could say it's the pivot or the center of the whole Prajnaparamita system. And then it's
Yes.
going through all of the different categories of the early Buddhist thought, particularly the Abhidharma, the schemes of the Abhidharma, to indicate that they are all empty of any kind of substantial existence, any kind of inherent existence. So in that way, the Heart Sutra is a kind of compendium of many of the conceptual schemes of early Buddhism. So we have the 5 aggregates, the 6 sense bases or the 18 elements, the 12 links of dependent origination, and the 4 noble truths. So what it's trying to establish is that they are all empty of any kind of substantial or inherent nature.
Yep. So towards the end, they say that there's no Papanca and that you enter Nirvana.
I don't remember if the Heart Sutra uses the word.
They negate in the sense that they were saying that there's no fear, there is no Papanca and no proliferation. Basically no proliferation, and that's the end, that's the Nirvana. So 没有恐惧，远离颠倒梦想。
Mayo Kongshu again.
没有恐惧，远离颠倒梦想，就近涅槃。
Yeah, it doesn't use. It uses similar notions as Papanca, but it doesn't actually use the Chinese equivalent for the Pali or Sanskrit Papanca, which is, somebody help me here.
细论，细论。
Right. Shilun. Yeah, I don't think the Heart Sutra uses Shilun, but the idea of Diendao, which is the equivalent of
Vipallasa.
Yeah, of Pali Vipallasa, is somewhat similar to Papanca.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Can
but
I
it
ask
doesn't actually use the Chinese equivalent of Papanca.
Okay, can I ask one more question, or I have to? Sorry.
I think we'll have to let other people ask first.
Thank you. Yeah.
If we run out of the other questions, then you can ask.
Okay, thank you, Bante.
Okay, next is Ian Chung.
Good morning, Bante.
Good morning.
Yes, just a quick question. Papanca can be good thing or bad thing. So for those mental pollution which goes on and on, would the best way to control it would be your sati sampujanya?
Yeah, I would say that sati sampajanya is a good way to control the building up, certainly the good way to control the building up of many thought formations in everyday life. Yeah, of course, we could say that Papanca, even though the text mentions just these forms of Papanca here, like I am this, I shall be this, I shall be that. But even all of the ways we let the mind wander and roam amongst various pointless thoughts we could say that those are extended forms of papancha, which can be controlled through the use of sati and sampajanya, of mindfulness and clear comprehension. So when we keep the mind in the present, knowing what we are doing when we are doing that, then we are preventing the mind from getting lost in the labyrinth of papancha. Like say, if you're washing the dishes, or let's say eating a meal, so often when we eat the meal, the mind is not paying attention to the act of eating, but we're thinking about what we did in the morning, what we're going to do in the evening. And all of those thoughts are just running through the mind. And by the time we finish the meal, we suddenly realize, wow, I'm finished eating, and I hadn't even been attentive to the food I was taking. So that is a kind of indulging in papancha. And so what we do through mindfulness and clear comprehension, we bring the mind back into the present. And so when anything is taking place, we know what we are doing while we are doing it. Yeah, so that helps to control the building up of these almost infinite elaborations of papancha. Okay, move on to the next question. Roman?
Hello, Bante.
Yeah.
My question is, how do we distinguish reality as it is versus papancha? And I want to give an example. I went for a walk this morning and I was trying to observe trees and animals and smells and sights. And I was trying to generate interest to those objects because I think interest is important. And I listened to your lectures about joy in wholesome. And I was thinking that, okay, I want to generate interest toward these objects of experience. But then I think even a tree that I'm trying to attend to this experience is to a certain degree papancha, because it's just my perception of a tree, but it's just a combination of elements.
Yeah.
And so where is this limit, not limit, but the border where it is just a reality as it is, just the moisture with the elements and sun, whether it's a tree. So is it papancha, see tree is a tree, or it's okay?
I think it's okay. I think one has to, let us say, distinguish different frames of reference according, or let's say the different contexts. So if one is sort of just relaxing, taking a pleasant walk, then you should see the trees as trees and enjoy, the beauty of the trees and the shade that they're giving, and now in the autumn, changing of the colors that one can enjoy and not worry that one is indulging in papancha. But if one is adopting, let us say, a strictly meditative framework, particularly if one is developing insight, then one just attends to one's experience, whether internal or external, in terms of the sense bases. These are visible forms. This is the physical body. This is the eye. Those are forms.
Okay, so taking joy in this experience, it's not something that prevents me from insight or
No, I think it contributes to upliftment of the mind and to the lightness of the mind.
Okay,
And so it would be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, Wiley?
Good morning, Bante.
Morning.
Can you comment on the relationship between the concepts of voidness, sunyata, and non-proliferation?
Yep. Yeah, the idea of voidness or shunyata in early Buddhism has several uses. It occurs in different ways. Okay, one way that it occurs is in relation to the six senses. the six sense bases. So in that case, through Papanca, one takes the six sense bases to be self or things belonging to a self. And we find this in Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 35, somewhere around sutta number 85, where Ananda comes to the Buddha and says, it is said that the world is empty, the world is empty. In what sense is the world empty? And then the Buddha replies to Ananda and says, the eye is empty of self and of what belongs to self. The ear, nose, tongue, and body and mind are empty of self and what belongs to self. Okay, so from that, we could infer that taking the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body and mind to be self or belonging to self would be Papanca, forms of Papanca, and the negation of those Papanchas by positing that the eye, that all of the six sense spaces are not self and not belonging to self. That would be the use of emptiness to undercut those Papanchas. So that's one example. But sometimes emptiness is used as one of the characteristics of, or one of the features of Nibbana. So in that case, we could posit that sunyata would be, as a synonym for Nibbana, would be that which is beyond Papancha, Nipapanchita.
Thank you. So would you say that perhaps taking voidness as the object of meditation is a good way to approach the problem of proliferation?
It depends on how one is going to take voidness as the object. Of course, there are different levels of voidness. So taking voidness or emptiness as the emptiness of self or what belongs to self, in that case, one would be using insight meditation into, one would be contemplating the six senses or the five aggregates, contemplating them through the lens of being not mine, not I, not myself. Yeah, that would be one approach. But there are other types of higher types of samadhi, which are called the emptiness samadhi, but those I'm not able to speak about myself. But they're referred to in Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 122, where the Buddha speaks about the samadhi of emptiness. So you could look at that sutta.
In fact, that's what I was referring to. That's one I've been reviewing, that one in 123.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, maybe we have time for one more question. This would be Kwai.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning.
Bhante, is this sutta trying to tell us that mental proliferation born of six spaces of context cannot understand Nibbana as Nibbana is absence of six spaces of context? Is it trying to tell us this?
I'd say what it's trying to say is that to conceive Nibbana through the lens of the categories of it exists, does not exist, both exist, or let's say trying to conceive the status of the Arhat who has attained Nibbana through the categories of he exists, he does not exist, both exist, and does not exist, neither exists, nor does not exist. Those categories are not applicable to the Arhat who has attained Nibbana. Maybe another sutta that would be useful for in this context would be Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 72. Yeah, it's 72. It's the discourse to the wonder of Vajragota on fire, where the Buddha uses, first he uses the simile of a fire that has gone out. And then he says, when a fire has gone out and somebody comes along and asks, has the fire gone to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west, up or down? And the answer to each of those cases is, it doesn't apply, because the fire doesn't go anywhere. The fire just goes out. And so then the Buddha says, in the same way, for the Tathagata, the enlightened one who has attained Nibbana, the idea that he is reborn doesn't apply. The idea is not reborn doesn't apply. The idea both reborn and not reborn doesn't apply. The idea is neither reborn nor not reborn doesn't apply. But then he says that the Tathagata, freed from form, feeling, perception, and so forth, is deep, immeasurable, hard to fathom, like the great ocean.
So this basically means it is not within the range of thoughts of Puthujjanas, worldlings.
Yeah, I would
Perhaps?
say it's not within the range of our conceptual schemes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, V, maybe we could let you ask the last question.
It's regarding asava, where the arahant who is still alive would have stopped the mental outflow. So under this context, they are not creating any karma, but they still have the 6 sense base and also the 5 aggregates. So how do they not creating the karma?
It's just that actions create karma only when those actions are enveloped in ignorance and craving, avijja and tanha. When those defilements are cut off, one could still act, but the actions don't create new karma. It's said that the actions of the arhat, it's like the birds flying across the sky. The birds don't leave any tracks in the sky. Okay, with that, I think we'll have to end the session for the day. And so we could end with the sharing of the merits. And so I'll recite the verses for sharing the merits. Okay, so we're going to share the merits with the devas, the nagas, the dragon spirits, the bhutas, the fierce spirits, and with all sentient beings. Akasa ta chabumata deva naga mihidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanang. Akasa ta chabumata deva naga mihidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu desanang. Akasa ta chabumata deva naga mihidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang. Dukha pata chani dukha baya pata chani baya. Soka pata chani soka antu sa bepi panino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. Okay, then we go. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Okay.
Bhante. Thank you,
Thank
Bhante.
you, dear
Okay,
Thank you,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Thank you,
Thank
Bhante.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you.
everyone.
Bhante.
Okay,
you,
Nice
Bhante.
to hear.
okay,
Wonderful to
Have a
see
good
you. Be
day.
safe, Bhante.
Thank you,
okay, thank you.
Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Be
Thank
safe,
you.
Bhante.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
And a bow
Bhante.
to Bhante. Thank you,
Okay,
Bhante.
thank you.
Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Bye.
Okay,
Thank you. Bye.
okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so I
Thank
will go
you.
up.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, Bhante.
We love you,
Love you.
Bhante.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.